The Willow Creek Asylum stood like a decaying monument to a dark past, abandoned for decades. It was now little more than crumbling walls and shattered windows, a forgotten relic of a time when the mentally ill were treated with cruel indifference. Whispers had circulated for years about the place being haunted, stories of disembodied voices, flickering lights, and cold spots that sent shivers down your spine. But for a team of paranormal investigators led by Sarah Mitchell, this place was the perfect setting for a thrill-seeking adventure. They arrived just after sunset, the sky a bruised shade of purple as they approached the looming structure. The team was ready. Their equipment was top of the line. EVP recorders, infrared cameras, motion sensors, and temperature gauges. It all came together in a quiet buzz of excitement and dread, but nothing could prepare them for what awaited inside. The Willow Creek Asylum had opened its doors in the early 1900s, a state-run facility built to house the unruly and the mentally disturbed. The history was grim. Electroshock therapy, lobotomies, and forced isolation were common treatments, with little regard for the suffering of the patients. Most chilling of all were the stories of the Willow Creek Five. 5 patients who were found dead under mysterious circumstances in the 1950s. They had been locked away in solitary confinement for weeks, isolated from the rest of the population. No one ever learned the full truth of what happened to them, but the town whispered of abuse, neglect, and something far darker. The investigators set up their equipment in the asylum's main hallway, the air thick with dust and the smell of mildew. Sarah turned on the EVP recorder, her fingers trembling slightly as she did. "We're here to communicate with any spirits that may still linger," she said into the darkness. "We want to hear your story." It was just after midnight when the first sign of paranormal activity occurred. The temperature in the room plummeted suddenly, and the motion sensors on the far side of the hallway triggered, even though no one was near them. A low hum filled the air, like the sound of static, followed by a soft whisper. Sarah froze. She turned to her team, all of them wide-eyed and holding their breath. "Did anyone else hear that?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. They all nodded, but no one had a clear explanation. The sound seemed to come from the back of the building, where the old isolation rooms were. The team made their way down the hall, their flashlights sweeping over peeling paint and broken furniture. The walls were lined with old photographs of patients' faces, blank, eyes hollow, each image more unsettling than the last. They reached the back of the building, where the isolation rooms lay. One door, in particular, caught Sarah's attention. It was heavy, the metal frame rusted and worn, and it was partially open. Inside, a chill hit them immediately. The room was freezing, far colder than the rest of the building. As Sarah stepped inside, the hair on her neck stood on end. Something was wrong. The temperature gauge on her device plummeted. She reached out to take a reading, but before she could, she heard it. A soft, strangled scream from somewhere deep within the room. It wasn't a sound any of them had expected, not a sound of a trapped animal or the wind. This was human, and it was full of pain. "Get out of there, Sarah!" one of her team members, Mark, shouted. But it was too late. The door slammed shut behind her, plunging her into darkness. Her heart raced as she fumbled for her flashlight, but it flickered and died in her hands. She could hear something moving, something behind her. Slow, deliberate footsteps, dragging across the floor. She spun around, but there was nothing there. The air was thick with the sound of her own breath. And then, a voice. "Help me," it whispered. It was weak, desperate. A woman's voice. "Please." Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she stumbled back toward the door, but it wouldn't budge. The whisper grew louder, the voice now pleading. "Help me. Please, help me." Suddenly, the temperature shot up. The door flung open, and Sarah was pulled back into the hallway. Her team was there, faces pale with fear. "What the hell happened in there?" Mark asked, his voice shaky. Sarah could barely answer. She was too rattled, too terrified. All she could do was point toward the back of the room, where a new chill had settled. A shadowy figure stood in the corner, barely visible, but unmistakably human. It was tall, its limbs long and crooked. But what made Sarah's blood run cold wasn't its size, it was its face. Or rather, the lack of it. The figure had no face, just smooth, pale skin, stretched taut over an empty void where its features should have been. Before anyone could react, the figure dissipated, vanishing into the air as if it had never been there at all. The room was silent again. "What the hell was that?" one of the investigators whispered, his voice trembling. "I think we've seen enough," Sarah said, her voice shaking. She didn't care about the investigation anymore. The terror she felt was all too real. But as they made their way out, they all heard it soft at first, then growing louder. The scream. It came from deep within the asylum, echoing down the hall, so agonizing and raw it made their stomachs turn. They didn't stay to listen any longer. They rushed for the exit, and as Sarah's team ran out into the night, they saw something they hadn't before. A figure standing in the parking lot, illuminated by the faint glow of a streetlight. It was a man in a velvet suit. He was facing them, but his face was smooth, blank, empty. Without saying a word, the man turned and disappeared into the darkness. As the investigators piled into their van and sped away, Sarah glanced at the others. No one said a word, but they all knew something. They had barely scratched the surface of Willow Creek Asylum's dark history, and whatever had happened in that place, whatever was still there, was far from finished. Did this story leave you chilled? Like, comment, share, and subscribe for more spine-tingling tales from the darkest corners of the world. What do you think is still lurking at Willow Creek Asylum? Share your thoughts below.